The early morning light was just starting to warm the temple courts. People were gathering. Jesus was there teaching. He often did this. He would sit, and people would come and listen to him. He talked about God, about life, about what really matters. He spoke in a way that made sense, a way that touched people's hearts. The crowds liked to hear him. He was different from the religious leaders they usually heard. But this morning was going to be different. It was not a quiet teaching session that would unfold. It was going to be a confrontation, a very public one. Suddenly a commotion broke out. A group of scribes and Pharisees burst into the courtyard. They were agitated. They were dragging someone with them. It was a woman. She looked terrified. Her clothes might have been disheveled. She was clearly distressed, humiliated. They had caught her in something. They had caught her in the very act of adultery. This was not a secret. They wanted everyone to see her shame. They wanted Jesus to see her shame. They pushed her into the middle of the crowd. They made sure she was right there in front of Jesus. They wanted to make a spectacle of her. But more than that, they wanted to make a spectacle of Jesus. They stood her there, exposed. And then they turned to Jesus. Their voices were probably loud, accusing. They said, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery." They stated it as a fact, which they believed it was. They had their evidence. They had their witness. They continued. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say? This was their question. This was their trap. Think about the tension in that moment. The woman, huddled in fear, probably shaking. The crowd, watching, unsure what to expect. The scribes and Pharisees, smug, waiting for Jesus to stumble. They believed they had him cornered. If Jesus said, "Stone her," then he would be going against his own message of love and mercy. He would seem harsh, just like the very people who were trying to trap him. Also, under Roman rule, the Jewish people did not have the authority to carry out executions. So, if Jesus told them to stone her, he would be encouraging them to break Roman law. That would be a serious problem. The Romans would not like that at all. But if Jesus said, "Don't stone her," then he would be going against Moses' law. He would be seen as undermining the very foundations of their faith. He would be called a lawbreaker, a rebel, someone who didn't respect God's commands. That would make him lose credibility with the people. It would give the religious leaders what they wanted, a clear reason to accuse him. It was a perfect trap, they thought. No matter what Jesus said, he would lose. He would either betray his own teachings or betray the law of Moses. They waited. Their eyes were fixed on him. But Jesus did not respond right away. He did not jump into their argument. He did not get flustered. He did not preach a sermon immediately. He did something unexpected. He simply bent down. He leaned forward. He looked at the ground. Then, with his finger, he started to write in the dust. He drew something. He scribbled. He just wrote there, on the dirt, on the pavement of the temple court. This was a strange thing to do. The accusers were shouting. The woman was terrified. The crowd was silent, holding its breath. And Jesus was just writing in the dirt. It seemed like he was ignoring them. Or maybe he was thinking. Or maybe he was showing them that their urgency was not his urgency. He was calm in the middle of their storm. He was not reacting to their anger, their trap. He was controlling the situation even in his silence. What did he write? That is the big question. The Bible does not tell us. It says he bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. That's all we get. No more details, no explanation. And this mystery has led to so much thought and discussion over the centuries. It has made people wonder and imagine. The scribes and Pharisees, though, were not going to let him just ignore them. They kept on asking him. They pressed him. They probably got even more impatient. They wanted an answer. They needed him to speak. They had set their trap, and they wanted him to fall into it. They didn't care about the woman, not really. They cared about catching Jesus. So they kept insisting. They badgered him. They asked again, probably louder this time. "What do you say, Jesus? What is your answer to Moses' law?" Then Jesus straightened up. He lifted his head. He looked at them. His eyes probably met theirs, one by one. And he spoke. His voice, calm and clear, cut through the tension. He said, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." These words changed everything, absolutely everything. He did not deny the law. He did not say the woman was innocent. He did not directly say, "Don't stone her." He did not fall into their trap. Instead, he turned the trap back on them. He shifted the focus. He shifted the judgment. He moved it from the accused woman to the accusers themselves. He challenged their moral authority. He challenged their right to carry out the sentence. The law of Moses actually said that witnesses were to cast the first stone. This meant that the people bringing the accusation had to be the ones to start the execution. But Jesus added a condition: those witnesses, those people casting the first stone, must be without sin themselves. This was a profound statement. It cut deep. It spoke to a truth that everyone knew in their heart but often ignored. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is without sin. Not one of them, not the scribes. Not the Pharisees, not the crowd. Not anyone. After he said those powerful words, Jesus did something else. He bent down again. He went back to writing in the dust with his finger, just as before. He did not look at them. He did not press his point. He just returned to his quiet action. He let his words hang in the air. He let them sink in. He gave them space to think, to feel the weight of what he had said. And that's exactly what happened. The Bible says, at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first. Think about that moment. The silence, the tension breaking, the sound of shuffling feet. The oldest, most respected ones, they were the first to understand. They were the first to feel the shame. They knew their own hearts. They knew their own failings. They knew they were not without sin. They could not honestly throw a stone, and so they left. They just walked away. They melted back into the crowd. Then the others followed. One by one, they drifted away. Soon, the only people left in the middle of that courtyard were Jesus and the woman. The accusers were gone. The crowd had dispersed, or at least moved back. The noise, the shouting, the accusations, all gone. Just Jesus and her. He straightened up again. He looked at her. He asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She looked around. She must have been amazed. She must have expected the stones to fly. She must have prepared for death. But instead, there was silence. There was no one left to accuse her. Or she replied, "No one, Lord." Then Jesus said to her, "Then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin." This was Jesus' mercy. This was his grace. He did not ignore her sin. He recognized it. He told her to leave her life of sin, but he did not condemn her. He offered her a chance to start fresh, a chance to change, a chance to live differently. He offered her forgiveness and hope. He offered her a new life. Now, let's go back to that central mystery. What did Jesus write in the sand? The Bible doesn't tell us. This lack of information is actually very important. If it were essential for us to know, God would have included it. But he didn't. This suggests that the act of writing was more important than the specific words written, or that the mystery itself serves a purpose. But people have thought about this for centuries. They have come up with many ideas. One common idea is that Jesus was writing down the sins of the accusers. Imagine that. Jesus bending down and slowly, deliberately writing out their secret faults, their hidden hypocrisies, their private shames. Maybe he wrote adulterer for one, thief for another, liar for a third. Maybe he wrote things only they would understand, things that would strike them deep in their conscience. This idea comes from a passage in Jeremiah, an Old Testament prophet. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 13 says, "Those who turn away from me will be written in the dust." This verse talks about how people who reject God will have their names or their deeds recorded in a way that is temporary, easily erased, symbolizing their eventual shame and judgment. If Jesus was writing their sins in the dust, it would fit this ancient prophecy. It would be a powerful, silent way of exposing them. It would make perfect sense why they left one by one, convicted by their own conscience. They would see their own judgment written on the ground before their very eyes. They would realize they were not in position to judge anyone else. Another idea is that he was simply doodling, that the act of writing was purely a diversion. It was a way to buy time, a way to slow down the frantic energy of the accusers, and a way to create a moment of calm and thought before he delivered his powerful statement. He wasn't actually writing anything significant. He was just drawing lines, circles, random letters. The meaning was in the pause, the deliberate slowness, the refusal to engage on their terms. It was about controlling the moment without saying a word. This would show great composure and wisdom. It would show he was not rattled. Some people think he was writing down the 10 Commandments. Perhaps he wrote, "You shall not commit adultery," to remind them of the very law they were using. Or maybe he wrote, "You shall not bear false witness," hinting that they might be misrepresenting the situation or the woman. Or perhaps he was writing the full list of commandments, reminding them that breaking one part of the law meant breaking the whole law, and that all of them were guilty of some transgression or another. This would serve as a powerful reminder of God's holy standard, a standard none of them fully met. There is also the idea that he wrote a general principle of justice or mercy. Something like, "God desires mercy, not sacrifice," or "Judge not, lest you be judged." These are ideas Jesus often taught. By writing them, he could be silently reinforcing his message even before he spoke it aloud. He could be setting the stage for his verbal response, preparing their minds. A less common thought is that he might have written something about himself, like, "I am the light of the world," or another declaration of his divine identity. But this seems less likely given the immediate context of judgment and accusation. His immediate response was focused on the accusers and the woman, not on a self-proclamation. And then there's the idea that he simply wrote nothing meaningful, that it was deliberately left unsaid. The mystery itself is the point. The fact that we don't know what he wrote forces us to focus on the things we do know. We know about the accuser's hypocrisy. We know about Jesus' wisdom. We know about his mercy. We know about the woman's desperate situation and her second chance. The unknown makes us lean into the known. It makes us focus on the profound lessons of the story rather than getting caught up in a detail. The act of writing on the ground also carries some symbolic weight. God wrote the Ten Commandments on stone tablets with his own finger. This was a permanent, unbreakable law. Jesus, in contrast, writes in the dust. The dust is temporary. It is easily erased. A gust of wind, a footstep, a hand, and the writing is gone. This could symbolize the difference between the rigid application of the law that leads to death and Jesus' offer of grace and a new beginning. God's finger on stone for the law, Jesus' finger on dust for mercy, a very powerful contrast. It suggests that while God's law is eternal, judgment based on human accusation can be temporary and forgiving. The quietness of Jesus' action is also very significant. The scribes and Pharisees were loud. They were aggressive, they were demanding. Jesus was calm, he was deliberate, he was silent. This contrast shows his strength, his control, his divine composure. He did not engage in their shouting match. He did not let them dictate the terms of the conversation. He stood above their accusations, quite literally when he straightened up, but also spiritually and morally. His quiet dignity in the face of their aggression is a powerful lesson in itself. Why doesn't the Bible tell us what he wrote? This is a deliberate choice. If the specific words were important, they would be recorded. The Bible often records very precise words when they are crucial. The fact that it doesn't here means the mystery serves a greater purpose. It keeps our focus on the deeper lessons of this event. The real power of this story is not in knowing the exact words written in the dust. The power is in Jesus' response to the trap. The power is in his challenge to the accusers. The power is in his mercy to the woman. The power is in the exposure of hypocrisy. The power is in the offer of grace. This story teaches us so much. It teaches us about judging others. It reminds us that we all have our own sins, our own faults, our own areas where we fall short. It challenges us to look inward before we point a finger outward. If we are honest with ourselves, we will realize that we are never without sin enough to condemn others. This is a very humbling truth. It also teaches us about the nature of mercy. Jesus did not excuse the woman's sin. He told her to go and leave her life of sin. But he did not condemn her to death. He offered her a path to repentance and change. He offered her a chance to live a different life. This is the heart of Jesus' message: forgiveness, grace, and a new beginning for those who seek it. He saw beyond the sin to the person, and he offered a way out. And it shows Jesus' incredible wisdom and authority. He diffused a very dangerous situation. He turned a trap meant for him into a lesson for everyone involved. He did it with a quiet act, a powerful statement, and a compassionate heart. He showed that true justice is not just about punishment, but about truth, conscience, and transformation. The image of Jesus writing in the dust, those unseen words, remains a powerful symbol. It reminds us that sometimes the most profound truths are not shouted, but whispered. Sometimes the most significant moments are not filled with grand pronouncements, but with quiet, deliberate actions. And sometimes what is left unsaid speaks the loudest of all. We may never know what Jesus wrote in the sand that day, but we know what happened because he wrote it. The accusers left. The woman was saved. And a timeless lesson about human nature, divine mercy, and true justice was etched not in dust, but into the hearts of all who hear this story. And that is what truly matters. The empty space of the unwritten words points us directly to the full heart of Jesus' compassion and challenging wisdom.